Hey there, Chad here, and this is Kerbal Space Program in 2022, and this is the third part of my episode on doing an Apollo-style moon mission. In part one, we put a rocket together and got it into orbit around Kerbin. In part two, we flew that rocket to the moon and did the separation and landed the lunar lander on the moon. And at this point, we're going to launch and catch up with the command module, which is currently orbiting the moon. We'll put them back together and we will head back to the planet for what I hope to be a nice splashdown in a very wet part of the planet. Okay, so I did plant a flag here, and I then one quick change I did is I got the ship using RCS. I spun the ship around so that I had a nice easterly trajectory just by leaning to the right, just like on a launch. So I would actually had landed kind of backwards. So I just fixed that by using RCS and literally spinning the ship. So that's all it took to do that. Should be good for fuel though. Yeah, we're looking really good there. And what I'll do is go ahead and launch here in a few minutes. Now here is the lander and here is the command module. The command module is going to come around, and I think what I want to do is I'm going to fast forward time until the command module is right about here-ish. I think that's where I want to be, and then I will execute the launch and we will try to meet up. This is not a given that it's going to be a clean, straightforward connection. This is one of the harder things to do in Kerbal Space Program, that is to leave a body in order to meet something else that is orbiting the body in an efficient manner. So let's hold tight and hopefully everything works out well this time. We'll know in a couple of minutes. This is something you can practice, of course, get better at just understanding how the parts work together, and that is something that with more and more experience you can do. And again, like many of these things I've mentioned, there's people who can just eyeball this and nail it first try, and that's not me. So I'm going to work at this for a minute and we'll see what happens. Also, there may be a much more scientific way to do this. I tend to do a lot of dead reckoning with this kind of thing, and we'll see what I mean once we actually launch here. I will use a lot of brute force to catch up with the capsule and get the lunar module caught up with the command module. So time to go. So we're going to launch. Let's see, I want to turn that on. And we will collect the landing gear, although it's not fully necessary, but there's no reason not to really. And we're just going to get going. Now I'm going to watch from this angle, and what I want to do is when this apo is a little above where this orbit is, I will go ahead and build a node at that point to circularize the orbit and get them kind of close. And from there, it's just a matter of tweaking until we get an intersect that's pretty close and we can get them rendezvoused. We'll go right about there. Okay. So this will not drift since we don't have friction of an atmosphere. I won't see this falling back or anything like that like you do when you're leaving Kerbin. So it's a little easier to work with. Okay. And I literally just want to get as close to the same orbit as I can. That's actually not too bad. It's a little wider on that side. Do that. We're going to be really close here. This is moving much faster than we are. So I've got a wider orbit right now, which would slow me down to allow it to catch up. I might have to change that just a little bit, but we'll go ahead and go with this for now. 24,000 and 20,000, and he's right around 17 all the way around, if I recall. So we're a little wider than him. I'm going to back that down just a little. The goal is to get them to intersect, right? So we need them to cross at some point. That might be a little better. We'll go with that for now. I've got a bit until we ready to go, and look at that. We're gonna be behind him. So I think what I might do is go ahead and get lined up as though I'm gonna do that, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and do it now. So our distance is, I don't have him marked as a target yet. So we'll set him as a target. We're 3 kilometers from him. Oh, I went too far. That was a mistake. I went way too far, so I'm going to need to swing around. Slow that back down. Okay, and now that's, unfortunately, this is what happens. You get in this back and forth of being too close or too far to the numbers, and that's on me. I kind of messed that up. But what we'll do here is I'm going to just do this brute force. So I can see him. I've got a good line of sight to him, and I know where he's at. So I'm going to line up to his. I'm going to go retro to him. I want to try to match our speeds, at least at first. So what I'm going to do is drop this meters per second difference down to 0, or at least as close to it as I can get. And there we go. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is point at him again. This is not energy efficient. I want to be very clear about that. Okay, we're going to kill that stuff too. I don't need it. This is absolutely not the best way to do this. But it is a way to do it when you have to, eyeball it more than anything else. So we will kind of close with him for a bit. But the problem is eventually we're going to start to drift away from him again, because that's the way orbital mechanics work. We're changing our orbit altitude by speeding up and slowing down and things like that. So that becomes a factor we really do have to pay attention to. What I can do though is I can, after I get closer each iteration of this, I can slow back down to where my speed matches his, and then I can creep a little closer. And in theory, I'll get there and be able to join up with him. This uses tremendously large amount of fuel compared to what an actual planned vector that we could do would indeed use. So again, this is not necessarily the right way to do it. This is a way to do it. All right, and I'm seeing that we're starting to kind of lose him there on the screen. So there we go. I went a little too far. Use RCS to get that back. And then I'm going to repeat. So we're only 400 meters from him now. So I'm just going to point at him, and we will close that distance. So the good news is we're still in orbit. We don't have a, I'm going to have to act here. So let's get that done. We're very close, aren't we? Okay, 50 meters away. That's not bad at all. Want to get a little bit closer. So we will go ahead and use engine, but I can probably cancel that with RCS. And again, I think we're fine. Yeah, we got plenty of RCS. We're in better shape with RCS than fuel in some respects. Okay, so he is my target right now. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Since we're closer on prograde, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to nullify it using RCS. So there we go. Okay. What I can do now is I can kind of eyeball what our orientation looks like. So I kind of want him that way to him, and I want to back up a little. I want to give myself some space to close, but then otherwise I just need to drive this in there, and I need to get the big one circled using my normal flight controls, which would be ASDW, Q, and E. The other one I'm using the I, J, K, L, H, and N. What I want to do is get that line, and then I drop that guy there. This is going actually really well. I'm really pleased with this right now. We are 27 meters away and moving further away, so I want to close that. Basically, I just want to get the crosshairs lined up dead center. And I'm going to use some L. Kind of start slowing down that right. Went too far. There it is. Get that centered. That is looking really, really good. I'm going to have to slow down a little here. 0.5 meters a second, as we talked about earlier. That's a lot of speed. On the other hand, you don't want it to take forever, because they will just start to drift apart. This is an imperfect system, but that should do it. Pardon me, we are hooked back up. Okay. So a couple things we can do here. First thing I want to do, though, so I do not forget, is I want to transfer my crew back into the command module. So there and there. Another thing I want to do is get in here, if I can find it, click the experiment storage unit, right click on it and say collect all. There really shouldn't be a whole lot of data to come. Have not collected a lot of science on this mission. I'm a little surprised by that. I thought there'd be a little more. But there we have it. Let's check and see if we have anything where we're at right now. Just the mystery goo. I guess we can go ahead and do that. It's not worth a whole lot to us, but it is what it is. We will collect all, so we now have that third item there. I'm not even sure if it'll apply because it was two of the same thing. I guess one was from the planet surface, so that'll probably apply. Okay. Honestly, that was the hard part. The rest of it is flying back. Now, what I want to do here is I want to transfer this fuel into this tank. So we open them both using Alt, and I'm going to tell this to pull in. And it emptied those tanks, so they're now empty. Then I want to basically do the same thing with these tanks. I want to pull in here. So I have drained everything off of this ship. I really could just cut them loose right now. I have 1300 delta V with this entire system. Is that the right? Yeah, that's the right rocket. Oh, the other thing I want to do is we're going to shut this down. We don't want it to accidentally fire. And I also want to make sure that I'm controlling from here. I think I was, but just wanted to make sure. Okay, so that looks like everything we need there. Let's look at where we are. Obviously, the planet is over here. What we kind of want to do, actually, we could do a burn now. It would push us out this way, and we'll start to drift in towards the planet then. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go prograde, and we'll watch this from here to make it a little more obvious what's happening, at least initially. So now this guy is going to be firing. Here we go. And then we'll come over here and look at what happens. Our orbit's going to grow. And in a very short period of time, we should see this pop so that we are heading into his, and there it is, into his sphere of influence. So that'll happen right about here. It's a little bit of time before we get there, but it's 4 hours to get there. But at that point, we will do another burn to pull us into the atmosphere, and we'll be good to go. Okay, let's go ahead and speed up time from this angle. And I believe we'll get a kick when we hit that that node, so we don't have too much to worry about, because we'll change spheres of influence and it will kind of let us know that. And there it is. So it warped down to 50. I was at 1,000. So that means we are now, yep, we are out of the moon's gravity well, and we are free falling around Kerbin again. So this time we're going to go and do retrograde, which is going to spin us all the way around again. I'm going to do two things here. This is a little different, but we're just having fun here. I'd mentioned in my last video that I tend to try to get hunks of things to smash into planets and whatnot, so that they're just not floating around all the time. We're going to go ahead and have the planet capture this. We're going to let it go and smash into the planet. Now, normally I wouldn't do that, right? Because it could hit a populated area, but you know, we don't have to deal with that with Kerbin. So we'll go ahead and give that a try. I'm going to look at it from this angle. So we're basically going to just do a hard burn to pull this in. And when this is inside the atmosphere, we will know we can, will be captured and eventually slow down enough to land and do an aero brake. Now I'm actually going a little lower than that because I want that piece to hit the planet, right? We just talked about that. So what I'm going to do is kind of get into a weird orientation here. Let's do it this way. Oh, I did that thing that I was afraid of earlier. I forgot to click on stability assist, so it's kind of messing with me a little bit. There we go. Okay, what I'm going to do from here is literally uncouple. There we go. Give myself a little space. Unset target, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. But we will see him on here. He will continue to have an orbit of his own, and eventually we'll see him disappear when he hits the planet. What I want to do at this point is go back prograde. Probably should keep track of where he's at. I don't want to slam into him on accident. This will be fine. I'm basically just going to accelerate for a moment to get this back up from hitting the planet. There we go. So that parry is 40. We can really just do this with RCS. So I'm going to put it just above the atmosphere. We will go ahead and thrust for that to get it up there a little quicker. And I hit the wrong button. I hate when I do that. So we'll go back to retrograde. Got a little too fancy there and messed it up. Okay, 122. We want to get to about 70, we'll say 75. So we'll just one little tap on the space bar, minimum thrust. That'll work. Okay. So we should see him there, the other piece. There it is. I lost it in the background noise, but it's right there. It's about 900 meters from us at this point. And we're going to go ahead and set ourselves retro. Now, what we could do is go ahead and set this into the atmosphere, and we could just set it down, and that would work just fine. And there's really no reason not to do that, except I did save a little bit on a blader. If you recall, when I built the rocket, I backed it off just a little bit, so we don't have because it's weight. It costs weight. So normally it would be at 800. I set it to 160. I took a very small piece of it. So I don't want to be going at the speed it would be coming from here. when I hit the atmosphere. I want to get closer, and then we'll slow down some and then kind of gently hit the atmosphere. At 3,000 meters a second. So you can call that gentle. But let's come back out here. And what I basically want to do is I want to put a node here that just executes this to slow me down into something that's a little more circular. Just like that. Notice that's taking a heck of a lot of energy. So let's take a quick look at this. So for 100 meters per second, I can get my orbit from being way out here at 10 million meters to being here at 5 million. It costs less than 100 meters per second of delta V. To do that again, costs 200 meters of delta V. Half again, we're up to 500. You see what's happening there? Right, it's exponential. So in order to pull myself into where I'm in a tight orbit, like a circular orbit, we're talking 860. And that's not even perfect. That's got me hitting the atmosphere at that point, which is kind of okay. That's what the goal is, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. What I could do is maybe slide this over that way a little, and that might improve some of those numbers. Might make them worse. It's actually made them worse. So, but the goal is essentially to get down here, burn off a lot of fuel to slow down, and then we will try to hit the sunny side of the planet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kill that. Let's just do this the old-fashioned way. We're gonna set a warp to here point. So you'll notice just before we stopped, the other thing hit the planet and disappeared. So it's done. Okay, we're going to come here. We're going to go retro. Guess we're already retro. And we're just going to fire that engine as long as it'll let us. So you'll notice that our Perry is going to drop down into the atmosphere, and that's fine, I think. Oh, that means we're hitting atmosphere now. Maybe I should wait a second. Let's go ahead and warp to here-ish. We will hit the atmosphere, and time will stop here in a second. There it is. So we'll go retro. We're just going to fire that engine. Okay, so I've got my lowest point of my orbit. It'll be here. I'm in the sunlight there. I'm happy with that. I've slowed down a good amount. It's not as much as I had kind of intended to, but, well, actually, that's not too bad at all. So we'll take that. So we are in atmosphere right now. We're going to continue to decelerate. We need to cut the rest of this loose. So I'm going to kind of... Oh, and I did it again. There we go. Okay. Get there. I'm going to detach. Put my capsule back in a retro kind of position. And let her rip. We'll speed it up. Can't go too fast because we're in the atmosphere, right? So we can only go up to 4 times speed, but we'll go ahead and do that. I don't think I'm going to make it to the daylight here. I'm going to be landing in the dark. Didn't plan on that, but that's okay. Yeah, well short of the daylight line there. Okay. When we hit 270, I'll go ahead and release the first set of parachutes. We are going to be hitting ground, it looks like. We're above grasslands. And once those pop, we'll hit our second chutes. So we might want to hit above ground here just so we have a good idea of where we're at. We're going to be hitting at about 300 meters above sea level. We'll ride that down for just a moment. Let's check and see if we have any experiments to do. I doubt we do. Do an EVA report. I'm not going to do that at 44 meters a second. So maybe when we hit the next chute here, which we're going to do right about now, and then that'll pop open. And now we'll be doing like 6 meters a second. We're going a little faster than that, actually. 8. Pop him out real quick. EVA report. Get him back on board. That was a little reckless. So it looks like we're going to be more like 500 meters above sea level. Still going a little quick, but it's should be manageable. The thing I was trying to decide, I do not have the ability to, there's no monopropellant that will slow me down as I approach the planet. There's no jets to point in that direction, so that's fine. We could drop this. We can eject it or jettison it, and that would save us a little bit of weight. It would slow us down just a touch, but I'm not going to worry about it. I don't think we're going fast enough to cause a problem. Speed up time just a little bit. All right, well, we're about to land here. That is my Apollo-style lunar orbit rendezvous mission. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something and maybe can put together your own ship. To do that is a neat experience to kind of learn how to do something new like that. And, you know, I tend to be a fan of books on the Apollo program and that, and several that you could probably pick up. One of the better ones is Jim Lovell's book on Apollo 13. He was, of course, the command, well, he was the commander of the mission, and of course, it's the mission that didn't make it to the moon. The rest that were intended to did, and they went well. Lovell, that was his last trip in space. He wrote a really good account of what happened there and why they had the problems they did. Great book. I do highly recommend it. Let's go ahead and finish this up. I was going to see if there's any more experiments to do while I'm here on this ground. Yep. We're going to skip that. So we're going to recover the vessel. Next is send a probe to another planet. I haven't done that in a long time. I might put that together as a video, and that might be where we go next. I probably need to pick up a little bit of cash so I can start expanding my base a little bit, but in general, I think we're okay. So we earned 26 science points. That's not horrible. And there we have it. So Zellberry advanced. He's now at the same level as Jeb, so that means he'll have the appropriate controls to do some neat stuff. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Please consider liking and subscribing. That helps me out a little bit. I do enjoy making these videos, and it is something that I tend to do more when I've seen that people are paying attention. So again, I thank you for your time, and until next time, fair travels.